Well, I thought I'd continue with our commentary on the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 1. We've had 7 sessions prior to this one with an overview of kind of the setting, the biblical setting for many of these topics, the priesthood of Christ, seated at the right hand of God or the Father, where that would be, which would be in the Holy of Holies, uh, on Yom Kippur, perhaps the one day of the year that the high priest went into the Holy of Holies. Psalm 110, sit at my right until I put your enemies for a footstool. A text that Jesus uses both in Mark 12 and then in the guilty with an explanation answer to the high priest in the Sanhedrin trial in Mark 14. So that what I want to try to do is to go over in a somewhat of an informal way what is going on in chapter 1. And I was actually looking at my website, Bible Explainer, with my name Chavez. You can Google it and find it, where this remarkable document that we have spoken about before, 11Q Melchizedek, is discussed in biblical, short biblical writings, short notes on biblical topics, or something like that. It's called. There's a link for that. It's a whole bunch of articles, little, 1-2 page articles. And in Qumran, this Melchizedek figure that again Rabbi Baumgarten calls an hypostasis, like a sort of an independent being, has this language regarding Melchizedek as Elohim, giving the name God to Melchizedek. They read Psalm 82, Elohim will stand in the assembly of God in the midst of the gods he judges. And this Elohim is Melchizedek. Of course, you know that even back in Exodus, there's a famous, the commissioning of Moses and Aaron is that Moses is going to be Elohim to Aaron's being a prophet. So that, see if I can find that. Moses will be Elohim, and Aaron will be my prophet or his prophet. Having trouble finding that right now, but I'll look it up and give you the exact quote. And so you have this idea of Melchizedek as leading the final Jubilee, Yom Kippur. The Jubilee takes place on Yom Kippur. This would be the 10th Jubilee, which for the Qumranites is incredibly important. It corresponds to the 490 years of Daniel. Daniel is reading Jeremiah and pondering what Jeremiah meant when he said that 70 years are set for Babylon, etc. So that the notion in Israel, the exile, was that the exile would last 70 years, according to Jeremiah. Now, 70 years is a long period of time. A generation would be 40. Interestingly enough, we could count the Babylonian exile as lasting 49 years. If you go from 587, destruction of the temple, to 538, liberation by Cyrus, it's 49 years, a jubilee period, 7 weeks of 7 years, or 7 weeks of years. I mean, there was a prior deportation in 597, I believe, and there's a subsequent one in 582, but you could count a 49-year period as the priestly period of time, maximum period of time that you can be away from the land before a jubilee declares that you can go back. That's very, very interesting. But if you read in Daniel, he's pondering what Jeremiah meant, because Jeremiah could not have been wrong. That's not a possibility. So he must have meant something that we need to understand when Jeremiah said 70 years. And 70 years, which I think would be Shavuim, Shana, could also be read as Shibin Shana. In other words, you can read this Hebrew consonants, to which vowels have been added. You can add different sets of vowels. The vowels were not there originally. So that if you added certain words, certain kinds of vowels, you could read weeks. And if you added another set of vowels, you would read 70. In Italian, it's easy almost to compare settanta, which means 70, with settimana, which means week. So that what the angel Gabriel tells Daniel, supposedly in exile, but this is really regarding a time much after exile, when people are wondering what happened to the 70 years. A lot longer has passed. In the Maccabee period, it's 165 BC. You've got not a 70-year period, but hundreds of years. From 587. If you go forward 400 years, you're in 187. That's even prior to the Maccabee period. So more than 400 years have elapsed, and they're wondering, was Jeremiah wrong? The 70 years are mentioned in Zechariah. So that was the classic amount of time. What does the angel Gabriel enable Daniel to do is to read it both ways. 70 years and 70 weeks, or weeks of years. So you can read it as 70 years or weeks of years. And if you combine the two, you have 70 weeks of years, which multiplies 70 by 7 and gives you 490, which for the Qumranites, 490 is really 49 jubilees, or 49 years times 10. 10 jubilees. On the 10th jubilee, that's when this liberation that Melchizedek will protagonize will take place. And liberty, this would be the roar word of the Jubilee, is emancipation, total manumission will be proclaimed. They also talk about relief, Shemitah, which is the more Deuteronomic term for a sabbatical type of year, to free them from the debt. Look at that. Meaning cash debt and sins debts of all their iniquities. And this will happen in the first week of the Jubilee, which follows the 9 Jubilees. And the Day of Atonement is the end of the 10th Jubilee, in which atonement shall be made for all the sons of light and for the men of the lot of Melchizedek. This is fascinating. And look at, you've got citations here of Psalm 82, which Jesus quotes in John 10 when he's accused of saying he's God. Other people are called gods, etc. And so you've got all this Very interesting Melchizedek stuff. And if you look at further in this excerpt from this document, which is from 11Q Melchizedek, they actually cite Isaiah 52:7, saying to Zion, your God rules. Zion is the congregation of the sons of justice, those who establish the covenant, those who avoid walking on the path of the people. Your God is Melchizedek. This is what Qumran is saying, the Essenes. Your God is Melchizedek, who will free them from the hand of Belial, the devil. And for what he said, Leviticus 25:9, you shall blow the horn in the land of, and this is the blowing of the horn in the Jubilee for Yom Kippur. Leviticus 25, verses 9 and 10. So it is very, very, very packed and interesting, and we're not gonna get too much into stuff that's too intricate. But in Hebrews, you've got this background. And so what the author, after the introduction, which we talked about, is saying that he is the imprint of God, the character of God, and the heir, sent in the end. After sending the prophets, just like in the parable of the murderers, vine dressers, that clobber and beat the servants sent diligently, the prophets. And then in the end, a beloved son in the end, eschaton. Here, he talks about, Jesus sitting on the right hand of the majesty on high. This is very much Psalm 110. Having become as superior to angels as the name he has inherited is more excellent than theirs. So this name is like a stand-in for the person. Hallowed be thy name. And Father Vanois made a big deal about this topic of name in this section of the epistle. For to which of the angels did God ever say, you are my son, today I have begotten you? So this again is the quote of Psalm 2, verse 7, which was read in conjunction with Psalm 110. The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right. You are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. And those two things are also united in the Jewish tradition and now here in the Christian tradition. Or again, I will be a father to him, and he shall be a son to me. Now, this is going to be the famous messianic prophecy by Nathan in 2 Samuel 7. So you've got Psalm 2:7, and now you've got 2 Samuel 7, where David wants to build God a house. And Nathan, the court prophet, says, fine, go ahead. But then he has a dream, and God says, I've never dwelt in houses. I go around in tents. I'm going to build him a house, David a house, a dynasty. He talks about the descendant of David. It's the most famous messianic prophecy. As I will be a father to him, and he shall be a son to me. If he errs, I will correct him with the rod of punishment, but I will never remove my chesed. Some people translate loving faithfulness or something like that from him. And you've got other biblical texts that talk about the Father God and the Messiah Son. And this is one. A very important one is Psalm 89, where you've got the great line there in Psalm 89. He will call me Avi Ata, you are my father, my God and rock of my salvation, and I will make him my firstborn and Elyon, most high among the kings of the earth. Now, this Elyon is a name of God. Melchizedek is a priest of El Elyon, God on high. The demoniac in Mark 5, in this crescendo of what the demoniacs, the possessed, called Jesus the Holy One of God, or you're the Son of God. In Mark 5, the tomb dweller, Legion, calls Jesus Son of God Most High, and in Aramaic or in Greek it would be, Ben El Elyon, Son of God Most High, with this very ancient name for God. So you've got this language, and again, when he brings him into the world, his firstborn into the world, he says, let all the angels worship him. My Jerusalem Bible is saying this is from Deuteronomy 32, this great song of Moses. And to which of the angels did he ever, of the angels, he says, I make of my angels winds or spirits, and their servants are flames of fire, etc. He's contrasting Jesus not only to the prophets sent previously. This is a son, the heir, not a servant like Moses in the house, Hebrews 3, but the son heir, almost like a prince in a way to the king. But of the Son, he says, your throne, O Lord, is forever and ever. Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. So, ho thronos su ho theos eston iona. This is a reference to the person in Psalm 45, a matrimonial nuptial psalm, maybe for Solomon and the princess of Tyre, when he married her, maybe Sidon up there in Phoenicia, called Elohim. So you have application of the name for God, one of the main names for God, Elohim, to this son of David, if you want. Scepter of rightness and the scepter of your kingdom. You've loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you. So there you have a reference to anointing, which is a reference to making Messiah. You see what kind of rich exegesis this is. Very Jewish, but Christian at the same time, for sure. It's about Jesus. And Qumran has stuff on being an anointed. We can get into that. We're running out of time. Qumran reads the fourth song of the suffering servant, which is ungrammatical in a certain part. It's a very difficult poem. I think we've said that before. And it says, so marring, or so disfigurement. It's ungrammatical. You don't say that. They translate, so disfigured was he that no one recognized him as a son of Adam, etc. But if you read it literally, it would be a noun. Another instance where you have to fool around with the vowels of the Hebrew consonants. And what Qumran came up with is, I so anointed you beyond the sons of men. Just like Psalm 45. You can read the Hebrew to mean that. I anointed you beyond the sons of men. Here it says your companions, which the Greek also says. But nevertheless, you've got here a combination, very rabbinic, of cross-referencing text, intertextuality, hyperlinks back and forth that are incredible. So you have, at least I'm trying to give you a taste of what's going on in this thing. And it's really, really incredible. So trying to keep it at 20 minutes. I'm going to stop there.